The podcast you're about to hear was made with Anchor. Make your own podcast for free at anchor.fm.
Hello everyone. I want to briefly discuss what it is to be a hacker and what the worldview I ascribe to as a hacker. So we all know that the media uses the term hacker in a way that they are talking about people who break into systems and steal information. However, this is not traditionally the correct way of using the term. So I'm using Eric Raymond's definition. If you want to read his entire document, it is at catb.org. You can find through there's a document on the page called hacker-howto.html. So you can search the internet for that. You'll find it. If I can figure out how to link this onto this Anchor segment, I will do that. Otherwise, I don't know how to get you the thing, but it's there. It's easy to find it. Just search CATB and then hacker how to. But he goes into talking about what it is, like what is an actual hacker. And there's a sentence here that says, and I quote this from Eric Raymond, it says, "There is a community, a shared culture of expert programmers and networking wizards that traces its history back through the decades to the first time sharing many computers and the earliest ARPANET experiments. The members of this culture originated the term hackers. Hackers built the internet. Hackers made the Unix operating system what it is today. Hackers make the World Wide Web work." And it goes on to saying, if you're a part of this culture, if you contributed to it in any way, and other people call you a hacker, then you're a hacker. So, that's what it is. That's where it started from. That's what it originated as. It was never somebody who broke into systems. There's another thing here. Talks about people who do break into systems are actually cracking systems, not hacking systems, and he calls them crackers. Which is funny, because there's a connotation with that word now, but that's what he's always called them. And I think not just him, probably the entire community of historical hackers, so to speak. And he does say that, people who crack systems are the ones that you hear in the internet, the ones you hear on the news about breaking things. And so I also want to go over what the attitude of a hacker is. So when I was reading this for the first time, I was reading this and I was just like, holy crap, this is like explains my worldview of computers and my attitude towards computers forever. I didn't even know this document existed until recently. I didn't know who Eric Raymond was, but I never really looked into his work until I started reading The Cathedral and the Bazaar, which is a great book. We'll get into that as well at some point. But he has, what is this, five attitudes of a hacker. The first one says that the world is full of fascinating problems waiting to be solved. This is very true. There's always something that can be solved, often with a computer or a computer-like system. Number two is no problem should ever be solved twice. This is huge. I'm going to start up a min now. Parts that have already been done by other people, and so I would just look at their code and say, okay, this is what they're doing. I'm not going to rewrite this. I'm going to use what they already had. Like, I'm not going to spend my mental energy to redo it if it's already been done. So that's helpful. Number three is boredom and drudgery are evil. This is huge for me. I hate being bored. I'm always having to learn something, and it's often with computers. I'm always trying to figure out what is the next thing I need to learn. 4, freedom is good. This is interesting. That says hackers are naturally anti-authoritarian. It also goes into saying that they don't disrespect authority. They just know that authority often doesn't understand the culture of a true hacker. And then finally, that attitude is no substitute for competence. So just saying you're a hacker, acting like a hacker, isn't going to be enough. Because when push comes to shove and you are expected to perform, you won't quite make it. So those are the 5 attitudes of what it is to be a true hacker. And we're going to keep talking about this because this is something that I think really needs to get out there, because people think hackers are bad, but hackers built the internet. Hackers make things work. Crackers, people who crack the systems and steal the information, like we had recently happen with Equifax, they crack, they don't hack. let's get into the next section of the article, which is titled Basic Hacking Skills. These are things that Eric Raymond believes that every hacker should know. The first one is pretty obvious, learn how to program. He talks about a bunch of different languages here, and his opinion on what people should learn. He talks about C, programming language, the language of C, the letter C, as being a very, very big one. But he understands that it's not the easiest one to learn. And he gets into talking about other things such as Python. But basically, any language, you have to learn some language. Starting with Python would be good because it's easy to follow, it's easy to read. It's easier than some other ones where there's a lot of nuances in the language where you have to put semicolons here and there, and you have to do certain things and import libraries and such and such and such like that. I think also another good one to start out with would be JavaScript, since it's ubiquitous. It can be used across any web browser. You can just mess around with it and test things out. So that's very important. Learn how to program. Also, he has here number 2 is get an open source Unix-like system and learn it and use it. This is mostly Linux. That's what I use. Linux is probably the biggest one. There are also ones called BSD. FreeBSD is very popular as well. They're Unix-like systems. They're kind of like Unix. They're based off Unix, but they're not actually Unix. Linux is probably going to be the best bet, because there is a lot of documentation out there already. There's a lot of people using Linux more so than BSD. He goes on to say that it's possible under Mac OS X, but it's not the best, because being that it's not open source, you'll hit a lot of walls in your process of trying to learn and tweak and tinker with things. And being a hacker, you gotta tinker a lot. There's a lot of tinkering that needs to be happening. Number 3, he mentions to learn how to use the World Wide Web and write HTML. This is probably going to be the best place to start, actually. Even before learning a programming language, I would recommend this to learn HTML, learn CSS, and then learn JavaScript. Because if you know HTML and CSS, JavaScript is a little bit easier because it often relies on HTML and CSS. HTML is a document markup language. It actually stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So it's not actually programming. It is coding technically, but it's not programming. It's easy to read, easy to follow. Start with that. Move into CSS so you can style it, make it look pretty if you so desire, and then hop into JavaScript and mess around with your pages you make and just see what you can do with JavaScript. It's a lot that can be done with JavaScript on the web now. And finally, he talks about that if you don't have a functional English, to learn English, the American English speaking language, that makes sense, yeah, is the predominant language in the hacker culture. Most people in the hacker culture use English in an American style, so to speak. He has an example here, and it says that, I'll quote this exactly, it says, Linus Torvalds, a Finn, comments his code in English. His fluency in English has been an important factor in his ability to recruit a worldwide community of developers for Linux. And this example worth following, end quote. So, because it's so widely used, learning English is going to be a big key. Now, chances are, if you're listening to this, you know English because you understand what I'm saying. So, he points that out, makes it apparent, but it might not be, the biggest thing. So, to recap, definitely learn HTML, then move into JavaScript, I would say, to just kind of get the hang of programming and how things work and write, and then hop into something like Python, C, Java, and Perl, and all kinds of stuff. Just start hacking, start making things work.
The podcast you just heard was recorded with Anchor. If you want to make your own, download the Android or iOS app completely free from anchor.fm/podcast. That's anchor.fm/podcast.